the total economic activity is up, which is counted by, the GTO tips, but also priority fees. The question is, does the chain work still? And so a few things still work really well. The local fee markets actually work way better than before. Transaction landing is much better than it was, again, in the past 6 months due to mostly Stakeway QoS. Much better, but it's still not perfect. And then one thing that's interesting actually is the sandwich attacks have gone down because a lot of the transaction spam has gone down due to Stakeway QoS. So all in all, it's been pretty good so far. Probably don't want to jinx it, but good metrics all around.
This episode is sponsored by Sei, the parallel execution EVM-compatible Layer 1 with sub-second finality. Incentives for users are coming to Sei this month from teams like DragonSwap. Start farming on Sei today by visiting dragonswap.app. We'll hear more from Sei later in the show. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Lightspeed. I'm your host, Jack Kubanek, joined today by my co-host, Mert Mumtaz. Mert, how you doing, man?
Good, sir. How you doing?
I'm well. It's been a little bit since we've done one of these, and we're doing a little bit of an early week news roundup in a week where there's been a lot going on in the Solana world. And that's kind of the place I want to start, Mert, is just with this crazy metrics boom we've been seeing the past couple weeks. I actually just checked before this episode, and Solana's REV, the real economic value, which basically just looks at the tips and fees that the Solana network is generating, shot up to 55 million last week, which topped the previous high of 36 million, which a lot of people were posting about. And before that, it had been like 27 million even at peak. So essentially, the amount of tips and fees doubled what the all-time high was on a weekly basis over the summer, which is pretty crazy. And Mert, I'd feel like in your position at Helios, you have pretty good visibility into kind of what's happening on chain. So I'm just curious to get even like a status report. Like, is stuff breaking right now? Are clients having trouble kind of accessing the things on Solana they need to with all the volume, or what are you kind of seeing?
Certainly the increased volume is noticeable, and but I also put another chart of all the different metrics, and so the total economic activity is up, which is counted by, the GTO tips, but also priority fees. And by the way, the priority fees themselves are also at an all-time high, even if you totally exclude GTO and MEV. So when people are like, oh, this is all sandwiches or something, it's like actually priority fees alone are at an all-time high. But like, so is like TVL. I mean, TVL is approaching an all-time high since, December or the 2021 season, where it could be argued that it was fake TVL anyway. So this is perhaps a real all-time high. And, transaction counts and developer activity is the one I'm most familiar with because obviously our customers are developers. And a lot of developers are coming to use Solana. And I also tweeted about this. And one thing I found interesting was a lot of them are actually from other ecosystems. And so, especially in the past 2 or 3 weeks, there's been a lot of teams who are kind of just like, we're looking to expand from EVM, and then they need some education on how to understand Solana. And so we're pretty good at that, and we kind of just get them up and running. And there's a few other ones that are coming soon, which I don't think I can talk about, but like within the next month, I would say there's going to be even more teams migrating. And obviously there's the hackathon where 1,400 plus people submitted, which is, I believe Maddie said it's the biggest crypto hackathon ever by his counts. Like, you couldn't find anything else. So that's quite large. And then obviously there's, the AI meme coins and then the regular meme coins, and then a lot of random activity that I've actually kind of lost track at this point. And okay, so the question is, does the chain work still? And so a few things still work really well. So the local fee markets actually work way better than before. So last 6-7 months or something, when fees would spike, the fee markets were actually broken. And so it didn't matter how much you increase your fees for your transactions, it landing was still very up to chance. And so people would just set random fees. And now the average fee is actually much higher than the median fee, which means somebody who's competing for a hot spot in like a Jupiter market or like a Radium market will pay higher for that market. But if I'm just sending USDC to my treasury account, then it's not as high. And so the fee markets are being isolated, which is pretty good user experience for the most part. Transaction landing is much better than it was, again, in the past 6 months due to mostly Stakeway QoS. And now it is much better, but it's still not perfect. So one thing that annoys some people is twofold. But the first one is that you can land your transaction, but some traders want it to land within the next like 400 milliseconds, and they want to snipe basically. And to do that, that's actually quite difficult. It's kind of up to chance unless you use Jito, in which case it's up to how much fees you pay. So that part annoys some people. And the second thing is, again, the shitcoin volatility. When you, let's say, want to buy some new shitcoin that just got released and the price is changing every millisecond, and you submit a transaction, it might fail due to slippage. And there's a few reasons for that. And one of them is just that it's actually quite complex, but like the price that's shown to the user is, there's some latency for the apps to actually fetch that price and show it. And then by the time they click OK, it also needs to land within a certain kind of time frame for the slippage to not exceed. So I think people just need to get creative around app level solutions for this, like limit orders, or like actually educating the user on what this means. And then one thing that's interesting actually is the sandwich attacks have gone down because a lot of the transaction spam has gone down due to Stakeway QoS. So all in all, it's been pretty good so far. Probably don't want to jinx it, but good metrics all around.
I'm interested to hear you attribute the better land rates and the less spam to stake weighted quality of service. Because my understanding was sort of that, following April, when there was also a huge spike in metrics and the Solana blockchain at that point could not handle it, and users experienced dropped transactions and things like that, that essentially there were like patches that were quickly pushed out by Anza and you get like a central scheduler and things like that. Excuse me. But like stake weighted quality of service predates that, right? So why would that be the culpable for the land rates being better during this kind of euphoria couple of weeks?
When it was first launched, it actually had a bunch of bugs in it, and those bugs were causing, and actually there was like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 bugs that were all contributing to this, and like some weird design decisions where you could actually DDoS the network through like forwarding infinitely, or not infinitely, but like you could basically DDoS the network. And there was a certain RPC provider that was doing this, and I called them out, and nothing came of it. It's not Helios or Triton. It's a multi-chain one. I think everybody can kind of guess. But yeah, around that time, there was a lot of bugs within the system. And so Anza just kind of kept patching them. And I mean, it's still not perfect, right? Like Stakeway QoS fundamentally is still a Band-Aid. But like now the experience is obviously at least better than it was during that other cycle in the past 6 months. And there's teams working on like a new quality of service system. And like the temporal guys, even Firedancer. So once that goes live, probably within a few other, let's say half a year, then SegWayQoS will be obsolete. And thankfully, because it's not a good system.
Maybe also, Mert, just conceptualize for us, like, what is the ceiling for the Solana network? Is it, say we hit 110 million in REV or something, and volume just hypothetically continues to really explode? Like, what would be the ceiling that would cause things to start to break for the blockchain, in your opinion, based on where things stand right now?
I actually think if the price went up like 2-3x, like if Solana was at like 500 or 600, I actually think that would be like pretty bad, because rent would go high and fees would go high, and it would probably induce more demand, which would then make the fees even higher. Now the fees would never become like Ethereum, but like as soon as you start getting above like 0.01, let's say, dollars in fees, that's, I think, too high. And so Solana is talking about increasing block limits, by the way, with Agave 2.1. So 2.0 is just rolling out right now. So 2.1 will be the one after that. And so what that means is more transactions per block, which means obviously higher TPS, but also more revenue, and ideally better UX as well if the accounts or the blocks are filled properly. In terms of what would break it, like one of the interesting things is the people who need to land transactions within and they care about the ordering, they use like a combination of Helios and Jito. But the ones who use Jito, the good thing about that is Jito is technically out of protocol, meaning it wouldn't directly break the protocol like Solana. Now it can make it work a little worse, but I'm not too worried about that right now. So it's the main problem of Solana's history, let's say, has kind of always been the same thing, actually, which is that there's a block leader that produces a block, and then it rotates, and then there's another block producer, and then it just kind of keeps doing that in a known schedule, which is called a leader schedule. And the problem almost always has been some combination of, we know who that leader is, so we're just going to send them a lot of shit, and then that person is going to get overwhelmed, and they're going to stop producing things. With SegWayQoS, that goes away. It doesn't go away fully, but it goes away to an extent such that I haven't seen any data yet since it's been live to indicate that it's letting anything through the cracks. But things can always get crazier. And one thing I like telling people, especially on Solana, is like, don't get too comfortable, because there could always be another outage. And people are like, oh, wow, that's crazy. It's like, I would say another outage is within, until the time that Firedancer comes live, which is like, let's say, spring 2025 or something, there will probably be another outage, is my guess. Because like these are systems that are like very, very high scale adversarial conditions that aren't like soaked in testing environments for years. I know some chains take that approach, and it's, I think every chain kind of has to make that decision for themselves. But, slowing down shipping is something that we have done. Like Solana has slowed down shipping quite a bit, I would say, to avoid outages. But I would be very surprised if there was not another outage within a year or two.
Interesting. And the argument you've made is that once Firedancer comes online, there is no liveness issue anymore because there's multiple clients. So even if the Anza client goes down, validators can switch to Firedancer, and the chain doesn't stop producing blocks, essentially.
Technically, it depends on the implementation. Like if top 66% of the stake sets up this fallback system where if Firedancer stops working, then you fall back to onset. If they all did that, which is very unlikely, I don't think they would, at least at first, then there wouldn't. But my guess is Firedancer at first does not help with liveness. Firedancer at first helps with the recovery. And what I mean by recovery is if there's like a catastrophic bug, then you can get the network to kind of restart with the new client in perhaps before it would have taken like, I don't know, 12 hours to find the bug, patch it, and all this stuff. But with this, you can just switch over instantly. And then it's just a matter about how much you can get the cluster to upgrade to that client. And so the recovery time is much shorter, but also security is improved because, I mean, fundamentally, this is one of the things that people kind of don't understand about Solana, which is that the priority is safety over liveness. Is kind of how we've messaged it, which is to say that if the network goes down, the reason it goes down is because it says, wait a minute, there's some funky business happening here. We're going to stop everything so that nothing happens. And then we're going to fix it. And so I personally store all my funds on Solana, and because I really trust that system of always valuing safety. Now, you know, if you're the type that has levered positions that are at 50x on some perp exchange and the chain goes down, yeah, that sucks, obviously. And so that's something you need to kind of work out the math for yourself. And there's actually been teams that got so mad at the outages, like Code, the payments app, that they're like, fuck this. And they literally just made their app work without Solana being live. They actually tested it during the last outage, and you can send payments within the Code app when Solana is down because it's a state channel, and then it just batch posts them back when this chain is back up. So, it's like a very, people always kind of do this thing where they're like, if a chain goes down, that means it's centralized, which from a distributed systems perspective is actually very incorrect. That actually it's slightly related, but it does not imply that in any way. For example, any decentralized system can go down due to like a low level kind of common shared module in any of these software. And that's kind of like with the client, it's very obvious because it's the software the validator runs, but it'd actually be anywhere in the thing. Like, I forget the exact instance, but like the other day there was a bug in like a JavaScript client or like a virus or something, and like the entire internet uses those JavaScript modules, and the internet is pretty decentralized, right? And like it doesn't matter how decentralized it is if it's just software, and there's a common shared module. And so what Ethereum does is something called an activity leak to prioritize liveness. So they have like, let's say 4 clients, 3 clients, something like that. And as soon as they kind of detect malicious behavior, they actually start cutting those validators out of the network and reducing the quorum size gradually, so that the chain keeps running, and there's no liveness failure. But the downside of that approach is that there might be like a bad fork or like an inconsistency with the data that you then would have to kind of settle. And Solana kind of just like says, no, that's not the approach we want to take. So anyway, I'm kind of just rambling at this point.
The Sei network brought parallel execution to the EVM with their V2 update this past spring. Sub-second finality and massive throughput are now available to EVM developers everywhere on Sei's high-performance Layer 1. Incentives for users are coming to Sei this month from teams like DragonSwap. Start farming on Sei today by visiting dragonswap.app. That's dragonswap.app. Thanks again to Sei for sponsoring today's episode. That's interesting. I didn't really know that that difference, that trade-off between liveness and safety. I guess maybe to bring this full circle, like you had mentioned, there's a number of different reasons why activity is up right now. In my own kind of just looking around causally, like it seemed like this Goatsius Maximus AI agent meme coin thing, as soon as that really took off and Mark Andreessen tweeted about it, that's when the Jito tips and the priority fees all went up a ton. So is that sort of your understanding that it's largely this kind of latest AI meme coin craze that's been driving the spike in income?
So I've been, because Dan keeps posting the economic activity chart from Blockworks, and he's been kind of posting it for like four days consecutively. And so I think like the first one of that was before the AI thing, or at least before the newest AI thing. There's like a bunch now. I can't keep track. But yeah, certainly it's no secret that a bunch of it is due to these coins that are, let's say, AI. Like, I actually haven't kept. People think I'm like some degen trader or something, but I have no idea what these coins are or what they're even called. I heard some goat thing, whatever that means. And so yeah, a lot of it's due to that. A lot of these due to these Telegram bots, uh, which I'll be very clear here. Some of them do overpay for the fees quite a bit, especially on the non-priority fee side. And but what's interesting about that is it actually begets other activity that's more interesting. So we like when this stuff is happening at Helios, we're supporting like basically all of them in a sense, like a bunch of them, these Telegram bots, these meme coins, these dexes, whatever, Jupiter, all this stuff. And as we support that, other teams come in because they see the activity that are like, doing other things like multi-sigs or payments or stables, and some new deepen stuff, some new SocialFi stuff. There's a new one called Tribe.fun, Time.fun as well, obviously. And like it's actually bringing other activity on the chain as well. So in some weird sense, the meme coins, or at least the activity due to the meme coins, is attracting other people to build the non-meme coin stuff. So it's like an interesting loop. But yeah, to be clear, a lot of it is due to the meme coins. Now, the one thing I'll caveat that with is people think like, oh, the fees are all from sandwiching people and like retail getting fleeced. That is not the case. If you look at the data, the sandwiches are actually a pretty minor part of the MEV revenue. And actually, people are using the Jito client not to sandwich. Obviously, there's like a small percentage of that, but mostly it's to actually do what I said, which is land transactions within an earlier slot. So it's actually all basically for priority access to the blockchain so far.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. As far as the current meme coin meta, I've been plugged in. I've been following it. I'll be honest. The uh, the original one was this kind of independent bot trained on like sites like Reddit and 4chan to just kind of make really edgy Twitter posts, and then it endorses a meme coin. The meme coin is probably near $1 billion market cap now. I don't exactly know, but it got really, really popular. And as I've seen this play out, the take I've sort of formed is that, you know, up until now, for the past like 6 months, meme coins have been financial nihilism, right? It rejects any meaning. It's just a picture of a cat, and if people like the picture of the cat, they buy it more. Maybe behind the scenes, there's like liquid funds that are also propping these things up. Who knows? But there's actually something limiting about just saying, "Hey, none of this means anything. It's just all a big, gamble that we're all making for fun."
Mm-hmm.
I think the AI agent meme coins, and I appreciated your tweet about this, Mert, where you were like, "We're just rebranding chatbots to AI agents now." But all of the AI bot stuff, it at least claims to like have some kind of purpose, where it's like now AI can decide what's a compelling meme and what's not a meme, and you can train it to sort of sift through different meme coins and decide which ones it likes or whatever. I don't know like how meaningful this is actually, but it at least claims to have a meaning, which is different from where meme coins were previously. So I think I think that's why there's like such a explosion in interest around trading these things. And if you go on any of the deck screener type sites that are aggregating the popular meme coins, it's all like AI agent stuff. There's this new thing called Luna Virtuals or something that's a similar project on Base, I believe. And I think, I would have to think Q1 2025, we're going to see a bunch of these types of projects raising um, and launching on in crypto and probably on Solana, just because it's been such a hugely successful um, kind of trope. Like the AI meme coin phase has driven Solana to double the largest amounts of weekly tips and fees it's ever generated. Like it definitely is a business case that people are going to want to explore more, and it
Yeah,
clearly makes a lot of money. So
yeah. There's a few things I want to perhaps say at a high level about it, just to sum up the topic. One is that so from an engineering and mechanism design perspective, what we care about currently are is like, okay, is the chain working? How is it working? What is the user experience? Right. That's what we care about. And in that sense, the source of the activity does not matter, because you can just swap out the source for some future use case and show that the chain works. And so one of the things that I was really impressed by, and one of the things that was a big question, was back in the day, this is like 2021, 2022 summer, people would criticize Solana and say, you cannot build a sustainable L1 with low fee transactions. It'd be too cheap, and you're basically just losing money the whole time. And so now we've shown that you can actually charge only priority hotspots like AI coins, let's say, but then use that fee to subsidize the lower fee transactions and then still generate a lot of income for the chain, which then makes it interesting because people are then putting more liquidity on chain, but people can also compose with more things. And so we've actually shown that you can empirically build a sustainable L1 with low fee transactions as long as the fee markets are isolated. So that's actually like a pretty big finding in a sense, because it's been shown. It's not theoretical. If you look at Dune or I think Blockworks as well, you can see the discrepancy between median and average fees. And the reason that's important is because, I mean, quick math lesson I'm guessing everybody knows this, but like, if you have, let's say 100 transactions and they're all 1 cent, but one of them is $100, the average is going to be skewed towards the $100, right? Like it's going to be skewed towards a higher number. But if 99% of those transactions were less than 1 cent, then the average doesn't show you the user experience. Then you look at the median, right? And so those things being like super different is actually a very good sign. It means the fee markets are working. So that's number one. And then number two, this is just, let's say, more philosophical on my end, which is like whenever I post this chart of like the fees, which is, by the way, like I think of meme coins as basically crypto native gaming in a sense. Like the people aping these things are not like damsels in distress. They're not like these innocent, bright-eyed people who are like, "Oh, I'm going to change the world." No, they're clearly just trying to gamble. Like obviously, okay, they're trying to have fun, gamble, whatever. They know what they're doing. They're not idiots. Like there's some agency there. Now, does that mean there's like zero people who don't know what they're doing? It's like, yeah, I'm sure some people don't know what they're doing. Um, but hopefully they're not using their entire life savings to do things they're not supposed to be doing, right? Like, I think there's like some very obvious common sense here that you need to attribute to the people. Um, and so every time I post these like the fee things, the fee charts, people are like, "Oh, but like, where's that coming from? Like, you guys are robbing retail and stuff." And it's like, okay, from the perspective of the blockchain, people are just paying fees to be included in block space. Okay, that's all that's happening. That's how crypto works. It's the same with all chains. I mean, all chains are also trying to do meme coins, basically, in a sense. Like some of them even have meme coin funds. Like Jesse and Brian from Coinbase literally tweet about getting AI coins on their chain all the time. So spare me kind of the moral conundrum there. Um, but the interesting part to me is that um, there's no agency being assigned to the people actually aping these things. Like these people, nobody goes into something called, like, what was it called, goat or something, um, and says like, this is going to be a really good investment for my children's education, right? Like, nobody's doing that. They're like, this is fun, it might go up or something. It's like, sure, okay, that's what's happening there. It's not like they're just being willed against with like a gun to their head. It's to say like, you must invest in this or you're like a scammer. Like, it's really and then like the quality builders, let's say, get like discouraged in a sense because they're like, like these meme coins are getting this much attention, and like that. One of the things I really don't like about that framing is like, if you don't like that, that's the use case being leveraged by users, build something that they want to use, right? Like, them building something that people have used, even if you don't agree with the morals of it, does not mean that if you built something that actually solves their problem, they're gonna be like, yeah, this really solves my problem. Like, I really need to send a remittance to my grandma in El Salvador, but there's meme coins on chain, and therefore I'll do that. It's like, that's not how it works, right? Like, if you build something that solves a problem, like for example, squads, it's a multi-sig. We store some of our treasury within it. I'm not gonna not use squads because there's meme coins. Like, that thinking really, really bothers me because it's so incorrect. Um, Nobody's stopping you from building things that people want to use that aren't meme coins, right? Nobody. You can still do it. And with the local fee markets, your experience is actually not even that much affected. And so you can do it on the same chain. You don't even have the excuse that like, meme coins are making the chain like super expensive. It's like, no, the median is still low. So anyway.
Final question on this, Mert. We've been in this kind of meme coin world for quite a few months now. I can remember back when Iggy Azalea first started tweeting about crypto. And that was a long time ago. So I'm just curious if over the past 6 months or however long it's been that we've been in kind of the meme coin world on Solana, has your take on meme coins changed at all? Or did you always kind of not care for them and you're still in that place?
I made a post a while ago about how, like, I think I probably over intellectualized it a little bit, but basically it was like, memes have existed for all times, really, meme in some format or fashion, even before the internet. And so now basically people, it's almost like a prediction market for social memes, is kind of how I think about it. It's like, if you see a meme and you think it's going to be resonant with people, you can kind of capitalize that and bet on it. So it's like a bet. It's like prediction markets in a sense, which is another great rebrand. And that's kind of it for me. Now, I think I don't do them, right? Like, I mean, people did like 3 or 4 meme coins about me, which was like kind of hilarious. Um, like, they had all these pictures of me and like quote tweets and like screenshots. This one, actually, my girlfriend has like a murdered, like one of the things was like, you got murdered or something. Just like a sticker of it, and like people just hand them out. So it's like funny. Um, and Obviously the trouble starts when like there's information asymmetry, and information asymmetry is like basically just unethical, right? Like, hey, you're dumping on people without giving them full information. So that part is certainly questionable and bad. And ideally, there's more analytics tools and better launch mechanisms and stuff. Um, and A lot of these things do go to zero, and people kind of use that as like robbing retail. But again, the way I think of it is, everybody who's aping these things knows the game they're playing. Nobody's looking at these as like a long-term investment for their endowment or their children's education fund. They're doing it to gamble, perhaps before they would gamble on horse racing, and now they're gambling on which memes will go up. I personally don't care for it. I don't do it myself. I just don't find it interesting. Like, I don't know. It's kind of just boring to me, to be honest. I actually liked NFTs better because NFTs are like kind of fun, and I'm like, I like the picture. What trait will I get? It's like, it was kind of fun. Um, Again, I didn't do that much either. Um, but my thoughts, so to your original question, um, my thoughts haven't really evolved on this. I think they're just a form of crypto gaming. Um, and I do hope that the information asymmetry part gets sorted out and like launch mechanisms are better and stuff. So like you can't just blatantly rug people. Um, and that would be nice. I'm not sure how that gets solved. One thing is I don't want the government to tell people what to do about this because it's like, you know, I mean, some regulations of course good, but like I think there's like it's always hard to say what the scope of it should be. Um, but in general, I don't use them. I just buy Sol or stake with validators. No, that's a
Mhm.
lie. I stake with validator, which is mine.
So I was talking to a VC about the goat stuff, and I was like, what do you make of it?" And he's like, there's two use cases. There's speculation and there's stable coins. So we've talked a little bit about the speculation. Now I want to get into the stable coins. Mert, Stripe acquired Bridge, which is a kind of stablecoin on and off ramp service for businesses, including SpaceX, I believe, for a reported 1.1 billion in equity. We don't know if that was you know the deal might have been marked up and worth less than that if I don't know they were ever to try to cash out on that equity. But that aside, for a lot of money, Stripe acquires Bridge. Uh, Mert, what was your take on this deal?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this, but fundamentally, or overall, great kind of sign for crypto because Stripe is arguably, people have like these companies they look up to, like Steve Jobs and Apple and Tesla and stuff. I actually like Stripe the most. I think they built a great business, and they're basically the backbone of the internet in some case or some sense in terms of digital payments. And a lot of businesses use them to accept online payments or like we use them actually at Helios. And so them getting into stables in a big move, and I think the largest acquisition in crypto so far.
I believe so.
That's a great sign because yeah, because not only does Stripe make great products, which now will be improved with crypto rails, but also Stripe is a very well-known company, meaning that this now means that um, fintechs will be looking to stable coins, but also Web2 VCs, and then obviously VCs in general will start being more interested in it. And so it's good kind of attention. Um, and Circle is going to go public at some point, and so I think stables are kind of going to be like, for example, I can actually already pay with stables in some parts in the UAE here, which is interesting. And I did like a profile with, it's called the National. It's like the Abu Dhabi news organization, and they were actually considering or exploring using stables for like uh, the dirham and using it for like just everyday life and stuff. So like, I think it'll probably still take some time. Obviously, like this stuff will take a while, but I think it's a really good sign. And then the other part of it is like, I hope it encourages founders in crypto to be more like Bridge and less like scammy. In that I quote tweeted and I said like, "Dear noobs, this is what an exit actually looks like." Um, right, which is you build something. Let's say you get the licenses, you kind of grind. You build something useful, such that governments use it, but also SpaceX. And then like a great company like Stripe comes and says, "Hey, you guys are quite valuable. Do you want to join forces?" That's an exit, not hey, we're going to release this thing and then we're going to talk shit about all our competitors while doing it. It's not going to be great, and then within 2 years I'll cash out and fuck you, right? So that's been a very common case, and so hopefully this gives some hope to like the serious founders in crypto, like, hey, this can happen, and like paves the road for them. um, and that's the positive. I think it's a really good thing. The libertarian in me is concerned to some extent, which many people disagree with me on this, and you know, rightfully so, probably. But stable coins, that are centralized are also not that great in my view, because like they're very, very in line with surveillance. So anyone can freeze it. Anyone can see what you're doing. It is more efficient, uh, engineering wise, systems wise. It's more efficient, better cross border stuff, better international stuff, better payments. But now the states have a lot of surveillance over you. So ideally, my hope is that there is some decentralized stable um, in the future. Historically, those have not worked. Obviously, DAI might be like the only example that's kind of worked, but that is also my concern.
I had this conversation a bit with Daniel Lev from CoinFlow last week, where I was like, "How cypherpunk are stablecoins?" And he's like, kind of agreed, like it's undeniable that Bitcoin is maybe more in line with these libertarian cypherpunk ideals that crypto was largely founded on. But if you want to get in and out of trading Bitcoin, for instance, you need stablecoins to provide the liquidity. So it's they're kind of like a middle ground. And yes, they are, you know, like more to make TradFi more efficient in a lot of the ways they're conceptualized than into build, a new form of money that's not dependent on governments. Obviously, they're generally pegged to the US dollar. But I think there's an argument where, they're a middle ground that you need to get if like the kind of maximal privacy decentralization is your thing. Stablecoins are kind of the thing that get you there. Um, I was just interested in this deal as well, like you said, Mert, for the implications for M&A and also perhaps for more IPOs in crypto. I think it's a bit of an unspoken thing, a little bit spoken, but that it's not an ideal state of affairs that basically, if you're a crypto VC right now, the only way you can expect to see a return on your investment is through a token launch. And it leads to, in my view, a lot of projects launching tokens that maybe shouldn't, with kind of like debate, like dubious reasons or utility for the token once it launches. And ultimately, like a lot of users of that product get really pissed off. And it's a movie we see again and again. And, if there was more of an M&A market or more of a kind of chance for companies not named Coinbase or Bitcoin mining stocks to IPO, maybe there wouldn't be as much pressure to launch these tokens. VCs would think, okay, I can, exit my equity in a different way than potentially selling tokens. So, we'll see. I don't think it's a guarantee that this means, oh, we're now in an M&A world for crypto, or that any of the regulatory obstacles keeping companies from IPOing are going to disappear overnight. But it's at least encouraging in that regard. The final thing is I just am curious why Stripe actually acquired Bridge in the first place. Like, I don't know. People talk about how on and off ramps aren't really a moat necessarily. Like, an argument I've heard is that this all goes to zero over time, and just the price you pay to on and off ramp stablecoins for fiat just gets competed down to zero. It becomes a commodity. And so I'm curious why what the value Stripe saw in Bridge was. I'm not inside the company. I can't know, but it seems like they really like stablecoins and maybe felt like they didn't have the staff right now to build this thing themselves.
Well, I think there's a few things, and yeah, obviously I'm speculating, but like it's more than just on and off ramps. Like Bridge also, helps with issuance movement, but perhaps like so if they're working with governments in like large treasuries of very large companies, there's a lot of regulatory red tape that you need to get all these licenses for, and like Stripe probably can't do that due to some other regulations, and so I think that's probably what happened there. Like they're like, okay, like we can spend the years required to get these licenses, or we can get just a company that has these licenses. Um, and like the deal is worth 1.1 billion, but like I don't know if crypto people, I mean, actually crypto people probably aren't aware, but like it's not like you just get the 1.1 in cash and then just leave. But that's not how acquisitions work. It's still like generally maybe it's equivalent to the bank balance that you had for the first part, and then there's some vesting for the rest of the 4 years, and then you still have to work for Stripe that whole time. So anyway,
A couple more rapid fire topics I want to get into, Mert, for today's episode. One is something I'm keeping an eye on, and that's mobile apps. Crypto generally has been interested in mobile for some time because it's, where most people access the internet most often. Um, but it feels like, okay, now we're in a period of time where, especially in Solana, these apps are actually seeing the market. It's not just a talking point. So Bird Eye's app is coming very soon. Cube's app is coming this week. Drip is coming in December. There's probably others that I'm forgetting in this list. We just saw a Jupiter app. Obviously, the new Solana phone is coming out. So, Mert, how do you feel about mobile apps? What is the benefit of these things coming to market? And do you foresee them growing the pie, so to speak, in crypto?
all apps that are consumer focused need to have mobile strategy. They need to be mobile first. Um, that's a given. Like most people are just on their phones. And one thing I've noticed with myself, at least, is that I almost exclusively use crypto through just the laptop and the desktop, and not necessarily anything to do with any phones. And like that makes things quite a bit more annoying. And maybe that's a skill issue. I mean, it probably is to some extent, but like the discoverability of these apps isn't great because there's not that many, um, and the experience is generally not that great. But like, I think it's a net, certainly a net positive that people are starting to think more mobile first, because like, if I just open my phone right now, and I look at my apps, right? I have a mobile banking app, I have a mobile ride sharing app, Perplexity mobile, Twitter, Instagram, email. Everything is kind of mobile first, messaging, except for the thing that my career is based on, which is crypto. So that's kind of weird. Um, I think with and I actually also have Code, which is like the payments app for Solana. But the problem is everybody else needs to have it on their mobile for me to kind of take advantage of it to some extent. And then I do have a wallet here, a Coinbase wallet from when I used to work there, actually. And they have like this Explorer built in to, explore things within the wallet. And so I don't think we've quite figured out the UX for mobile that well yet, because it's, anytime you go from something not existing to it existing, there's always these weird spots where you have to figure it out. But, and, I tease totally about like, hey, dude, like, why the fuck are you working on this phone? You kind of need to fix the L1, it's still pretty broken. But I think they sold like 200K phones or something. And granted, probably a good amount of those are like one person has like five or something. But if you can even increase that number by like 50K, like the number of users with phones and like a good mobile app store for crypto apps, you don't need much. Like one of the things I like about that's interesting about crypto is it's not like traditional Web2 where you need like a billion users on the platform to make it good, like with the network effects. With crypto, you can even just have 10,000 people and then it can still be a valuable app because the capitalization levels are it's much easier to capitalize 10,000 users in crypto than a billion users in Web2. So perhaps it doesn't need to be that many people. I think the developer experience probably isn't that great. So that's why we're seeing a lot of, let's say, lag there. But then also the app store models are really bad from what I understand. Like people are just getting fleeced with these fees. And I think Ethereum also released a phone or something. I saw some
Oh
things
yeah,
about it.
yeah, I've seen that.
What is that about? Did you look at that?
It's not a phone. I think it's more of like a souped up mobile wallet that you can also maybe access the internet on. I don't really know. It doesn't look like it's very close to market, I would say, but very surface level have looked into this thing. But I think
Interesting.
that's sort of what the Solana Seeker could become, because I think at least in the current world with this next phone, I don't foresee a ton of people going the what was it, Matt Siegel from Van Eck, who told us that he uses it as his primary phone. I don't think a lot of people are going to do that, but I think there's a world where people have their iPhone or something, and then they also have their crypto phone that they do crypto stuff on. And there's a lot of incentive for crypto apps to build on the Solana DApp store, they're calling it, with the, Apple famously charging a 30% tax on transactions and Solana charging a 0% tax. Like, that's a huge difference. And that's the sort of like, the sort of discrepancy is what I think it would take for the Solana phone to see like meaningful adoption. Obviously, that's from the developer side. From the user side, we'll see. I think another thread I'd look at too is Telegram apps. Telegram is arguably the most successful, crypto mobile app. I guess the Coinbase app would, you'd also have to put that up there. But Telegram has like really good product market fit. It had tons of users playing these tap to play games. Even the like head of the Iranian military was commenting on hamster combat and how it was being used to kind of spread Western soft power or something like this. So, um, Cube is launching an app on Telegram, and I was chatting with Bartaj over there, and he was like, "Yeah, it's you don't have to deal with kind of the Apple App Store regulations and requirements, and you already have a huge crypto native user base. So, and Telegram has some kind of native app store built in. I don't know if they take 30% or not, but I
Hmm,
would think that you'd start
that is
seeing more
weird.
mobile apps built within Telegram as well.
Yeah, that's actually one of the most common pitches I get, which is like Telegram, but also WhatsApp apps,
Hmm.
basically. WhatsApp is like huge in this part of the world now that I moved to Dubai. Like people just, I bought some Zins the other day and I just gave the guy some Soul and he's like, sure, it was really interesting. Um,
Huh.
one like random thought is, you you know, um, so okay, I like what Sui is kind of trying to do, which is they have like this little PSP kind of gaming device, and it's like
Yeah.
crypto first. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but like I think what would be interesting is like trying to create a category instead of trying to replace an existing one. So like Kindle is probably a good example, which is like a Kindle is not meant to replace your phone. It's meant to be a new way of reading, and it's just black and white, or the new one actually there's a colored one, but it's black and white and it's just for reading, just that. And it is a mobile device in that it is mobile. You can bring it with you places. Um, and it's kind of the same with like a Game Boy, or like you remember those Tamagotchi things, like the little device things. um, I actually think that could be more fruitful, where it's not like a
Hmm.
replacement for a phone, but it's like its own category of device where you just kind of bring it along with you, like a ledger in a sense, um, like a Kindle, or like one of those. Now there's those remarkable tablets or something like that where you just take notes. I actually think that's probably how it would actually make meaningful impact, because like you are just not going to replace Apple. It's just
Yeah.
I look. I'm like the most optimistic person ever, but like that is a fucking hard thing to do. Um, so I think that could be interesting, just like a new category defining device.
What do you think about glasses?
Oh, I actually like them quite a bit. I was a big fan of Google Glass, even back in the day.
Yeah.
Um, I think Zuck like recently announced their like kind of mixed reality stuff. Um, and like it took them like 8 years to develop it or something. And obviously it's not perfect, but like I think within like 3-4 years, like some iterations, that stuff is going to be quite interesting because like I have the Quest, or I used to have the Quest, the Meta Quest 2. Well, it used to be called Oculus, which is a much better name. And that's actually like pretty fun. I actually quite liked using it. And if you can take that and like bring over some of the experience to glasses, I think that's like still my like first three startup ideas were all within that space, which is like virtual reality, AR, and like I had these ideas in high school, and so like the tech wasn't there. I had this idea where you could like virtually try on clothes so that they would fit without shopping for them online, like and just getting wrecked and you have to return and all this. Um, I even had the idea for like I don't know if you've seen like the IKEA stuff, but like you can just take a picture of your room and then it turns into like a virtual reality place, and then you can kind of put
Mm.
together the furniture virtually. um, I actually think that stuff is going to become more and more important over time. So I love the glasses.
Mm. Yeah, I haven't like gotten a chance to try on any of them, but you should have, man. You should have taken these to market. You could have sold to IKEA. You'd be a very rich man, probably. I don't know how that tech got developed or what it was, but Palmer Lucky's
Yeah,
doing quite
I
well, I guess.
yeah, it was just this weird thing where I'm like, oh, I'm just in high school, whatever. Like I can't actually build a business. Looking back, that was stupid. I probably should have just done it. But
I guess, Mert, I'll just ask you to like conclude the show. We've talked a bit about meme coins as a driver of a lot of the Solana volume, but there's also been a lot going on recently with the Radar hackathon. I think just finished submissions. Um, you're in the UAE now, kind of doing super team stuff there, I guess. What's just like, give me like something you're interested in, or some kind of cool new app that you're excited about seeing coming to Solana or being built right now.
so my answer to this, I don't think has changed in the past year almost, which is SocialFi. I really do think it's the most interesting thing to build in crypto right now. Personally, like I don't think it's objectively, but subjectively the most interesting thing because once again, social media network effects are basically impossible to break. But with crypto, you've seen that adding some capitalization to it in some regard, it doesn't have to be like pay to play or pay to earn or something, but it could even just be like what was that new thing that just got released? Well, there's Tribe.fun on Solana, which is seems interesting, has some traction. DAOs.fun also is like has like the social element as well. Um, and Time.fun is also coming to Solana, and that has a social element. And the reason I think that's interesting is because actually the mobile point, which is that people who do social go on their phones. And if there's a mobile element, or like Telegram, and Solana like does have a strong social layer, right? So that's arguably one of the most or one of the strongest aspects of it, which is that because everybody kind of has the same understanding and mutual understanding of the community and like you saw Breakpoint was quite large but also quite unified and like exciting for most people. And so you combine all those things, and I think there's a really interesting opportunity there. I don't think it's like a group chat that you have to pay to enter. I don't think that's the thing, but I think there's a lot of interesting ways you can like tap it back into Twitter or Telegram, and then start mixing this data. And I think that's interesting. And then second, I've seen a lot of pitches over the past few weeks about like AI, obviously. Um, so there is a world in which like using text or voice or whatever to somewhat simplify on-chain actions, but also even maybe development, such that the accessibility is higher. Um, I think that would be interesting. Um, but if I could just pick the next big app, then I would probably just build it myself. So this is kind of hard to kind of reason about, but what I would use personally, which I've said this a bunch of times and somehow it doesn't exist. I don't know how, which is very simple. I get thousands of DMs per week. I have to like keep clearing all my inboxes. All that I need, and like Totally would use this, and a lot of other people will use this, is like some paid email or message forwarding service where you say like, okay, I'm going to pay this person $1 or $5, and then I can ask them for like pitch deck help or some Solana research help or something like that, such that I can actually go and manage my connections and my messages and my agenda. And with crypto, it's super easy. You just, hey, give me one USDC. And it's not about like us making the money. It's more so that it acts as a filter such that you like, because people just will spam anything. And so if they want to be more careful about what they say, such that it respects both their time and like the reader's time, that's like a very simple app. I don't know why it doesn't exist. I would use the shit out of that. So somebody should build it.
You heard it here first. Someone go build it. Well, look, it's been a good episode, Mert. We've covered a lot of ground, and good to get back on the other side of the mic from you. You know, doing a roundup episode. So it's been a good time, and we'll see you in the next one. This episode would not have been possible without the Sei network. Don't forget, user incentives are coming to Sei from teams like DragonSwap. Make sure to check out Sei today. You can start farming on Sei by visiting dragonswap.app.